All right. Well, let's get started.
No, let's do it.
So this is Two Homers and a Realist. We are joined by the often mentioned first-time appearance of Jay, who is going to have to determine what he is for this one, because I think all of us are going through an identity crisis. But let's go ahead and introduce ourselves, starting.
This is Lucas.
Steve.
Connor?
Jay.
All right. So we're not sure who is a homer and who is a realist today, who is an optimist, who is a pessimist, but we're going to flesh all that out. Let's start with just the basic, who's optimistic, who's pessimistic. After today, how do you feel compared to before the game? Let's start with Jay.
All right. Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me. Normally, I'm about as much of a homer as possible, but this entire season, I'm pretty disappointed in the team. So you can put me on the pessimistic side for sure.
So you're pessimistic, but in general, like how did this game change you compared to how you were at the start of this game, which you had voiced your concerns to the group, this small group, about this game coming into it. But how do you feel about it now after the game in relation to how you felt going into the game?
I'd say it's about the same. I think there's just still
Did you
too
watch
much.
the game?
Yes.
Okay.
There's still just too.
The OU game.
Yes, sorry,
Okay.
I did. There are. I think the things are easily correctable, but I'm not sure why experienced players are still having these issues. I think Grinch mentioned this week that he still sees the 2020 players, and it doesn't seem like there's been any growth from the defensive players.
That's an interesting comment. Would you say that, even though it wasn't voiced that way, that on the offensive side of the ball, we're still seeing early 2020 in many regards?
Yeah, I mean, it looks like Rattler's first couple of games again.
Mm-hmm.
And he obviously improved throughout the season after the benching at Texas. But, I mean, if you look at Rattler the last 3-4 games last season compared to right now, he looks lost. I don't know. I don't really understand.
So, Connor, are you optimistic or pessimistic today after the game versus where you were before?
I got to be more pessimistic for sure. I agree a lot with what Jay just said. It's super disappointing. I know I've used that word in the past on this podcast, especially the first week, but it's just and I think a lot of it boils down to, like what Jay just said, experienced players not looking experienced or not looking coached up to the level that we thought they'd be at this point this year compared to where they were last year. So, for example, we did just talk about Grinch calling out these defensive players. I see a lot of growth on the defensive side of the ball, in my opinion. I think Nebraska had some dudes up there that are guys who are very Division I eligible players. They were big up front, in my opinion. And I think towards the latter half of the game, we got in the backfield more than what we were in the first half. However, offensively, that's where my pessimism really lies. We have been spoiled offensively in the past. I completely understand that. But when you are hyped up as one of these offensive juggernauts, if not the offensive juggernaut in college football, and you're looking out on the field and seeing the play that we saw today, I don't think there's anything but pessimism coming from that aspect. So
I'll pick up on that theme. I think that even with whatever hype may exist, if you just look at the raw ingredients of what we've got and what we've recruited and the coaching continuity that we've had on offense, you expect to be at a higher level than where we are right now, a more consistent level. And it seems to me, we'll definitely get into this for a while, that both at the quarterback level and the play calling level, you're seeing some real problems and some shortcomings. I would say that I'm more pessimistic. I think that I'm actually maybe not much different on the defensive side of the ball. I was maybe impressed by Nebraska enough that it overcomes whatever happened on defense to say they are a better team, I think, than what we thought they were going to be.
Right.
And I don't think that's just in relation to seeing them play us closer than the spread. I think it's a lot in relation to see them play in person. And at least if they had a lot of fight in them, they had a lot of creativity, they had pretty good execution aside from a lot of false starts and other things that were going on in their offensive line. I think all in all, offensively and defensively, they're a pretty good team. I definitely think that they were impressive, more impressive defensively than I thought they were going to be. But with all that said, I'm disappointed in our offense and disappointed in our play calling, and generally a little more pessimistic for sure than when I entered the game. Lucas?
I think we're back to saying what you two were saying after the Tulane game. You're like, hey, Tulane's a lot better than we thought they were. And they play Mississippi tonight. We'll see what they do.
Yeah.
If they play well against them, then I would be wrong seeing that Tulane is better than I thought they were. But after that game, both of you were thinking that we played decent, but Tulane was better than we thought they were. And now you're coming into this instance, and
I
you're
stand
like,
by that.
Nebraska looks better than we thought they were. Blah blah. They lost to Illinois, who was trash. I think it just proves that we're further down than we thought. Than everybody
You
thought
weren't
we were
impressed
gonna
at
be.
all by Nebraska versus what you thought coming into the game?
I was impressed with the creativity of a couple of their plays. They run a jet sweep, fake reverse,
Do you think
throwback
their
pass,
execution was
stuff like
good?
that.
I think Martinez played really, really well.
I think he played well, but he was.
Do you think they can compete in the Big Ten this
no,
year?
not at all.
Have you seen the Big Ten?
Yes, I mean they're not better than Ohio State, even though Ohio State's
They're not better
very
than
good.
Ohio State. I'm not saying
Michigan State looks better.
I think a lot of
Wisconsin
that. I
could
think
be.
a lot of that initial Tulane skepticism, though, was definitely on the defensive side of the ball because we got so let down off of the hype that was around this unit. Today, defensively, there's one or two plays that we left out on the field, in my opinion. The concern for me after this one is offense. That is a concerning aspect of this entire team. On the defensive side of the ball, we were flying to the ball in most cases, and that was down some players.
I
If he
agree.
wasn't so athletic, I mean, there was 7 or 8 sacks left out there that a lesser quarterback would have been sacked. We had good pressure on a lot of those, and we would grab at his ankle, but he would just get away. He'd be able to roll to his left or right, get rid of the ball, or run for 4-7 yards. So I was impressed with Martinez looking good, which I don't entirely blame on our defense. He just made athletic plays. But as an overall team, I don't think Nebraska is going to. I mean, are they a bowl game team? I don't think so.
Oh, I think.
I
they're
mean, if
definitely-
they go 6-6, I'll be surprised. They're 1-2 now.
Have you not seen their schedule? I don't know, but
I haven't seen their schedule
They're actually
either.
1-3.
They're 1-3.
Or
No, they're 2 and
2
2.
and 2.
They beat Furman,
2 and
and
2.
who else did they beat?
Buffalo.
Buffalo. Okay, so they're 2-2. So
They've got some winnable games.
Who
on
had a
the
good
schedule.
showing today? They got some winnable
Buffalo hung in
games.
there with Coastal Carolina.
I'll take
For a
the
while.
over on that. I think they're better than.
I mean, I guess they could be a 6-6
But you were
team.
agreeing with something. You had something else to say there.
Oh no, the defensive line is definitely playing well. I think some of the scheme early on, we got out of our rushing lanes, just getting too far upfield, and left Martinez these gaps to run through.
We're very misbalanced there, where the rush was all to the right or the left. A lot of times the right, and he was wide open to go to the left. Yeah.
We started having Benito
Right,
shadow him pretty much the whole second half for the
I
most
didn't
part,
notice
and
that.
that worked.
Dropping him in the spy
Yeah.
I
often.
didn't notice that. That's good.
And our linebackers and safeties, we're going to see this from every team we play from here on out until we show we can stop it. But crossing routes and drag routes across the middle, and the whole bringing people in motion and having them go on a drag route, it just completely confuses them. Those are really the only busts we have today, or those types of plays. If you just line up and play,
I think our
normal football, but
I think our play in the backfield is definitely lacking, but I think
we
it's
were
getting
a
better
couple
and
starters
correctable.
out too.
That's true.
they only had
Exactly.
95 yards rushing. So obviously our
Yeah.
front seven played well against the run,
Yeah.
but it was a bunch of those 3rd and 7,
Well-
3rd and 8s that they would run a 12-yard drag, and the defender is trailing them, but not close enough to knock away the pass or make them worry about getting hit before they caught the ball, except for the one tight end that got blown.
So I would say that
over the middle.
we had 2 big busts deep, and aside from those, defense played extremely solidly. A couple of bad penalties at critical spots, but the defense, even with those busts, and they're going for nearly neither one for a touchdown, but both set up touchdowns. It shouldn't matter because your offense should be putting you in a position that they're playing insurmountable catch up, and they weren't. And I think all of us looked up. I was surprised. I looked up at how fast the game was going by, playing right into Nebraska's hands, and how few points we're putting on the board, and realizing how precarious a 14-3 lead is. Definitely when it was by the luck of blocking a kick and catching it and being able to run it back 100 yards for a for a 2-point conversion for yourself, being up a touchdown.
That was a huge boom. With the game.
Huge, 16-9.
Yes.
Changes the whole composition of everything going forward, and maybe the difference maker in the game.
I actually told my
about,
dad before that happened. I said, "I'm surprised we're not going for 2 to make it 14-11 because then they're only a field goal off."
Well, I
But
thought
for the way the defenses on both sides were playing, I thought Frost may go ahead and say,
It's
"Well,
hard not to-
if we can get a 3 now on the other
Yeah.
side, we only need a field goal to tie this game."
it's hard not to not to just kick the conventional.
Chase the points.
To chase the points.
But I've been the opposite
like-
of a lot of analysts where I say the earlier you know what you have to do,
I agree.
the better.
I'm with you on
You don't
that.
wait
I like that
until
philosophy
scoring
too,
the last
where you
touchdown to go
are
for 2 if
forced.
you don't have to, because then
Yeah.
you need to know what
I
you
agree.
do.
And in that same vein, to criticize Nebraska and Scott Frost, although this isn't the point of this podcast, but it was interesting, when they had a chance on 4th and 16, when they throw the greatest interception in the history of college football, according to ESPN.
No, there was a question mark after.
Oh, there was?
That said,
Okay.
is this the greatest interception?
Well, when they threw that, they should have kicked the field goal, because then they're only down by 11, and they're still within. It's not like it was 4th and 1.
that would have
It
got
was-
them down by 8, wouldn't
It
it?
was 4th and a mile. Yeah.
If they kicked the field
no,
goal,
they
they would put it within 8.
They would have.
What was the score?
No, we were up by 14.
No, we were up by 14.
So they would have put it. They would have been within 11, and so then you're a field goal and a touchdown with the 2-point conversion. It just didn't. I know it.
Still two
it's,
possessions though, with only 6
It's still
minutes to
possessions,
go.
but it's 4th and 15, and you've got to basically get to the. If you get the 15, you're nearly in the end zone anyway. So I don't understand why they didn't. I think it's 4th and 15. It's 4th and forever. They had a penalty.
Yep.
And so, or no, a sack. And so I don't know why he doesn't think about entertain kicking the field goal there, just to see whatever happens next. It obviously worked out for them, because even with an interception on the next play, 3 and out later, which we'll talk about, they are in OU territory, going down for a touchdown to put them down by just 7 and 1 touchdown. So we're getting right into the overall impression of the game, and maybe we've covered the game and the team. Let's start into players, and then we can start getting into, as well, I think, some coaching. Coaching isn't explicitly on something we generally talk about, but I think that's an important part of it. So player and position, most surprising, encouraging, or disappointing. Who has something to offer there?
Oh, I'll go with what I said right before, and clearly a little biased, but Jalen Redmond was extremely impressive. I loved when we moved him out to the edge and had him matched up one-on-one.
I wish that fumble was a fumble that he
no
would
kidding.
have gotten
Yeah.
a rumble in for the touchdown.
He was explosive off the edge and dominant. I mean, I'm looking at his stats here. He had 1.5 sacks, 2 solo tackles, 5 total tackles, and out of those 5, 2 tackles for losses. So just a really solid game. I think it's fun seeing him get back in the groove and see him just add to the complexion of that, what's supposed to be a very dominant defensive line, with Benito and Isaiah Thomas and those guys up front. So really encouraging from his side. So that'd be my surprise
Surprising
player.
player.
Yeah.
We'll definitely talk about quarterback independently, but anybody have any other surprises or something disappointing or encouraging that they saw?
I think Eric Gray looked better today.
Yeah,
He looked
I'd
more
agree.
patient.
I agree.
He's kind of learning to let his blocks develop a little bit better.
Absolutely.
And he's just one little step away from
Yes.
taking one to the house.
Yep, strong runner. He just one broken tackle, one little acceleration away from
We had
really breaking free.
194 yards of rushing today.
He made a lot of guys miss.
We
at the
rushed really
point of
well in moments when we were moving the ball, and then we drifted away from it.
Stalled,
Even though we had success passing on one drive, a touchdown drive, it was frustrating that we were passing the ball and going to the pass as much as we were. But yeah, we had some really good. I think that's a good pick for.
My only critique of Gray and Lincoln is Kennedy's vision is so much better.
Yeah.
And Gray was continuously the running back in goal line situations. And he got stopped at the one
And
several
he's the
times.
smaller back.
Right, Gray. Brooks is more powerful.
Yeah.
And he just sees the holes just a little bit better, knows where to go. So that critique is really more on Riley than it is Gray.
Yeah,
Just
Brooks is a really purposeful runner. I mean, he's very direct.
He is the smoothest runner since Mike Gaddis that I've ever OU runner that I've ever seen. If you ever, I know that was before your time. You need to go back and watch clips of Mike Gaddis running. He was absolute grace. He just was smooth like he was on ice. He was so damn good. Tragic end into his career with a knee injury that before knee surgery technology where it is today. Came back but never was the same. But he was so absolutely elusive. Brooks reminds me of that a lot, just with his sleek running. I really, really like it.
Yeah.
And his vision is really impressive. And it continued today for sure. Any other players before we get to coaches and quarterback? Because I want to talk about both of those together. Let's go right into quarterback. So we start with the question, will Rattler be a Heisman finalist? Prediction, Lucas.
No.
I will say, at this point, no, but not as enthusiastic a no as you. I believe from our discussion pre-pod. Connor?
I'll say I don't think so.
I'll go with I don't think so too. That's what I mean by that.
Well, I mean, that's what the definition is.
Well, it's not. Will
I don't think he
Spencer
will be, so I
Sanders
say no.
at Oklahoma State be a Heisman finalist?
I don't think
Hard no. Will any of us be a Heisman finalist? Harder no. But will Rattler? Probably not.
I'll say no at the moment. He does have a chance only because of how he turned it on last year.
Mm-hmm.
Plus,
The hype.
overall, I think across college football, I don't know if there's just that many dynamic players. You almost might get there by default.
There's a very well. It's two facets to that. That's a good point. The competition may be pretty weak, and when you've got a head start that you enter the season as a big candidate, it's hard for the most people to knock you out of that. And as much as we see this game, the rest of the country is not watching this stuff.
Right.
The
He
same
hasn't
way.
done anything to lose it.
Right.
He's just
right.
not grasping. He's not taking it.
My
We
thinking
see him
today-
throwing a triple coverage.
Right.
And we're
No
like,
one
what
else
the
You'll
heck?
never see that
Right.
play.
Yeah,
No one else.
Stat
will.
line shows an
Stat
incompletion.
line doesn't show
Right.
that. I was thinking about that today as I was watching it, thinking about this question and realizing that this was an opportunity on a bit of a big showcase, not the biggest of showcases, but a pretty big showcase showdown here, where he could have done really well and really advanced his stock in that. But he didn't completely miss in a way that would have shown up on the stat line. And so back to the showcase showdown illusion, if you guess a number like $1 trillion, you're definitely going to lose. If you were to throw 3 interceptions today, you're definitely going to put yourself in a very difficult position to overcome that. And you lose the game. This is a game that was hard fought. He won. He had a pretty good quarterback rating, and I think 78 or something.
79.2.
Yeah, I was calculating in my head.
Yeah, you missed
And so, that's right. I forgot that one. He did get that 1 yardage. So I think that's a good point. He probably is still in a position where it's his to lose in the sense of getting to New York. But we see the truth that there's going to be he's not going to have that breakout game as likely as we hope, where he puts himself and elevates it to that stage and that level.
Yeah, because nationally, I think he had 1 passing touchdown and 1 rushing touchdown against Tulane. And I think he had that again today.
They're raving about how great of a half he played.
But he had 5 passing touchdowns last week, but no one's going to remember
Which
who
one,
those
where they
5 are
came
about.
against. Yeah. They're
So
gonna see
right now he's
number of
shown
touchdowns.
7 rushing touchdowns, or 7 passing touchdowns, 2 rushing touchdowns, and a quarterback rating, pass percentage
and a
rating,
3.0 rating
for
a 3.0
however many
record.
people have not watched the game. So.
Right. And he's going to have that big game. It may come at Texas. It may come against Iowa State. We don't know. But he'll have to have something that elevates him in the eyes, I think, of those voters. But let's criticize him, and let's criticize Lincoln at the same time. So I'll start. I thought that his decision-making is scarily poor at this point. His footwork has been criticized a lot, and now I'm really seeing it as now I'm sensitive to it. If I were Lincoln Riley, who doesn't seem to trust him a whole lot, I think you had mentioned that, or maybe you.
I think it was Lucas.
Yeah, Lucas mentioned that. I would have him roll out a lot. He seems much better in the rollout, on the move, and that is and so if I'm a defense, what I would do is just try to force him to beat you in the pocket. And that's really sad to think that a Heisman quarterback's not going to do as well if he's in the pocket to try and beat you, but I don't see it right now. I don't see him looking off receivers in the right way. If there is real pressure and really good coverage, if you're playing Western Carolina, that doesn't exist, but today against Nebraska, it did. I think that to criticize another thing, which is Lincoln Riley's play calling.
You mean the 6 different plays we called all game? We just this play to the left, this play to the right, this play to the left, this play to the
It is
right.
very straightforward and simplistic, and I don't know if he doesn't trust the offense enough, if he doesn't feel like they've come along, which why? Wouldn't he be to blame for that? It's not like he inherited this last week.
It's not like all those guys are brand new.
It's not like they're brand new, so I don't understand that, or is he just so worried about showing something that he wants to hide and keep everything in his back pocket until deeper play into the season.
You're just not
a
good enough for
5-point
that.
game against Tulane,
I
a
agree.
7-point game
I
against
agree.
Nebraska. You need to be throwing.
You need to
everything
be
out there.
throwing a lot more out there, and I could see their defense that they did a lot of things today that they haven't done, things that we would criticize because they didn't work, and it didn't work, like the shovel pass twice. I love that play. I don't know if I love it in every situation. I don't.
Or to a fullback.
Or to a fullback.
Yeah.
And one thing I don't like, back to the criticism of Lincoln Riley, we can easily criticize Rattler for making the wrong run-pass option decision, which he did a couple times, the wrong read. In one instance, he made the wrong decision. He should have handed the ball off. He ends up passing, and then he makes the wrong pass. So it was double bad.
He did make a good read and not hand the ball off and kept it when he ran to his right to get a first down at one point.
Yeah.
Was it fourth quarter?
Yeah, because
it's in the fourth.
those
Yeah.
defensive ends too are
Yeah, 'cause
not
the-
expecting him to keep it. They just keep
The
crashing
defensive
down.
end
Right.
definitely crashed, and
Right.
he kept it and got
Right.
7
That was
yards
good.
or whatever.
So
A
not
big
everything is
touchdown.
not everything's flawed. Not everything's awful. I'm going to defend him in a second, but I'm going to give you guys a chance to weigh in right after I make a knock against Lincoln's play calling. So 2 things. One, I wish they'd spend more time on basic football and less time on razzle-dazzle plays.
Yep.
The throwback to Rattler, for him to throw it for negligible, what was it, a 20-yard
20-something
gain
yards, 20
that's
yards.
covered?
If the guy doesn't come, that's a touchdown. If the guy doesn't stay at home to go after Rattler, if that guy went ahead and crashed when they threw back to Rattler,
Right.
he had to get rid of it quick. So
Right,
he threw it
right,
off his
right.
back foot, so it was only a 20-yard
Well-
play, as opposed to if he's able to step in that throw, it's a touchdown.
Okay.
That was the play call that actually worked, but
Didn't
the
completely
defender
work.
stayed home.
It's, to me, and I love those plays. I love that we do that stuff. My problem is, if we're not far enough ahead in the rest of basic football, let's not spend a lot of time on that and do it, because it's a high-risk play. At the very least, it all has to work. And Max, of all people, recognized, he goes, hey, that's what got us beat against K-State. If you remember throwing, it was not exactly the same. It was
Right.
CeeDee
Should've-
Lamb throwing
should've
it,
caught it,
and should have caught it. But still, it was. It's the kind of stuff where I just would like to see the other parts of the offense working really well before that. And the other thing to criticize Lincoln Riley, and then I'll stop this monologue, is when we're at 3rd and 6 at the end of the first half, and going into headed towards the end zone, we decide to throw a pass to Stogner, who either he broke and read it wrong, or Rattler read it wrong and he overthrew it. I would rather treat that as 2-down territory, run the ball, and then run it again. We end up missing a long field goal because it's 4th and 6, obviously, after a badly missed pass. I would much rather see us try to run the ball with the intention of going for it on a 4th and 2 if we get to that position. So that was disappointing to me. It's just one of many things I'm disappointed in some of Lincoln Riley's play calling. Now you guys take over. Rattler.
I think Rattler's regressed. I mean, the benching at the Texas game, he came out, played great the second half, and in overtime. The rest of the season, it seemed like he continued to get better. Every game he got better.
Yep.
And by the end of the season against Florida, we're like, holy crap, Rattler's gonna be the man next season. Like, he's top 5 in the NFL draft projections. He's number 1 Heisman projection. And we're all going to the season like, yeah, I mean, if he looks like he did the last 4 or 5 games of the season, this is going to be our next Baker, Kyler, whatever.
Productive quarterback.
Right, our
There's no
next,
question.
efficient, awesome quarterback. And then first game of the year, we're like, he's maybe rusty, got a couple guys out, maybe this,
Yeah. A lot of stuff happened off season.
Last week he only got to play a half, which he looked fine, but it's against lesser competition. So this was the game that I still don't think Nebraska's any good, but this was a game that he should have played well for us to go into the rest of the season thinking, this is on.
Mm-hmm.
And it does look like it. He looks like pre-Texas game again, where he's throwing into triple coverage. He's lobbing balls that they're like a 12-yard out route that he should be firing it in there to get the guy.
What you criticized earlier, it
chance
was a
to
great
catch it,
one,
and he's
where
lobbing
he is running for his life and he wings it to a guy on the sideline where he should just be throwing that ball out of bounds and getting rid of it. And
He throws it up for grabs. And
who-
Mario Williams has to
Williams.
play defense and knock it away from 2
Mario
guys.
Williams did that twice.
Yeah.
Mario Williams had to play defense on offense twice.
Yeah.
On that, I don't know. It's just like I've
Threw
never.
that ball to Hazelwood that was like 10 foot over his head
Yeah.
on a 3rd and
Yeah.
7 or something like
he
that.
fired one at Hazelwood that it was like he was trying to hit the strike zone in the World Series, and it was
It was behind his head. And,
I mean, he went 24 of 34, which honestly, yes, we're spoiled because we're Oklahoma fans forever. And for the last 7 years or however long it's been, we're spoiled with, guys throwing 4 incomplete, going 25 of 29.
But we demand. I mean, it's a reasonable demand to have top level.
Yeah.
Quality.
That passing percentage is not great.
No.
Against a team that lost to Illinois. I mean, this Nebraska.
Yeah,
and everybody criticized going in. They're saying, Nebraska's front seven is pretty decent, but their corners are horrible, is what I kept hearing. Their secondary is lost. And then today, you think, we're really going to take – we may not be able to run the ball that well, but we're going to really take advantage of the passing game. And it wasn't there.
Well, there's lots of reasons that you may not win or look good.
214 yards passing.
But we're keen in on the fact that the quarterback's not looking good because it wasn't drop passes, it wasn't missed blocks, it wasn't busted coverages on the defense. It was quarterback play that was the shortcoming. It really is a
And we're
weak
not used to
point
that.
on this game. So I think it's
Well, when you
the
hold a
reason
team
we're
to 3
criticizing
points in the
them.
first half, you would think on the Lincoln Riley offense, this game's out of
Yeah,
control.
it's 21 to 3
Yeah.
I mean,
or
easily.
24 to
At
3.
least.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, it should be no question for that.
One of my troubles is
I like the first drive with the methodical. I
I
know
actually looked really,
I
really
did
well
too.
the first drive.
I did too.
I thought, this is going to be a methodical day. We're going to 75 yards in 8 minutes or whatever it was. I was like,
Yeah.
if we do this, if we stop them, get the ball back, then have our normal 4-minute drive and score another touchdown, this could be 21 to 3 at halftime.
Let me get one
no
more
problem.
shot in about that. We have a true inability to go vertical at this point.
Oh, we haven't even
And-
tried.
Well,
Some of
that's
the
the thing.
safeties
Just a few
were
times we
playing
have.
like 12 yards off the line of scrimmage.
Well,
I
a
can't
few
believe we
times
didn't go
we
deep.
have. Yeah, and that one is a floater where it was at Mario Williams again playing defense
Yeah,
on
I
that
think
deep post route that was just so. I know the guy can throw it deep. We're not doing it and not doing it in the right situation. So criticize Rattler.
I think he doesn't look laterally. I think several times he has running backs in the flats open for an easy 5, 6, 7, 8 yard gain. Not sure. He never looks that direction for swing passes.
Right.
I don't know if it's just
Maybe
not
it's a
what he
third
likes to
read.
do.
I don't know.
I don't
Yeah.
know if it's not what he's taught to do, but he seems to look for a curl route over the middle or a seam route or something else that says check down versus some running back that's sneaking out of the backfield.
Yeah. I got a theory on that.
The triple coverage when he threw, Brooks didn't have anybody within 8 yards
Yep.
in a circle around
Yep,
him.
I saw that too.
It's like if you just check that down, Brooks runs in the end zone 40 yards out.
I think, and this is a lot of assumption on my part or presumption, but I think the guy wants razzle dazzle and he wants big plays. And throwing it to the guy in a flat is not a big play. It can be a great play. It's just it doesn't feel like it. What feels like a great play is threading the seam or throwing for 50 yards. And I think he has a bias towards what is the more sensational play, not the safe, efficient, let's get it done play.
Yeah, I don't know if that comes with experience and time or what, but
And he didn't play his senior year of high school, right? He got in trouble, played like
Right.
2 games, and then
Right.
didn't play the rest of the year.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
Having sex in bathrooms do.
I would now like to not have to edit this podcast. So I would say that let's praise him a little or see if you can. I think that he's still a sensational athlete. I think that he's still got a lot of potential. I think that it's something that Lincoln Riley would love to still have an opportunity to work with a kid like that with all of his raw mechanics and what he can bring. I think he can still end this season fabulously. I think he could still win the Heisman. I think he could still do a lot of things. I've got a lot of faith in that ability. My faith is being challenged, and when you're going to have to convert faith into reality at some point. But I do think that you have to give the guy some slack that he's had a very weird 3 years. He didn't play in high school. He played under Hertz, which was a weird situation to have a transfer come in when you expected to be in the program. And then you had obviously what was a completely crazy year in 2020, and he did end pretty strongly there. So I'll give the guy some chances. At the same time, I'm going to start criticizing and being critical of Lincoln Riley more and more and Rattler less as it goes on, knowing we have someone pretty good on the bench who potentially can step in and be a big-time player. And so if we end this season and we're very disappointed in our quarterback play, I'm not going to be disappointed in Spencer Rattler as much as I'm going to be disappointed in his coaches who didn't put him in a position to win or realize he wasn't the right guy to win. The other thing, if I were going to be real derogatory, I'd say the best thing that maybe could happen to OU is what happened to OU in 1985, and that's have your star quarterback get injured. And I'm not saying that. But that's the ironic part of what can happen for you in what you might have to have happen to give a second backup quarterback a chance. And I don't think that's necessary. I don't see everything they see. I'm going to defer to those guys paid millions of dollars to make this decision. But man, it's looking challenged as we don't see Caleb Williams on the field and we see Rattler doing what he's doing.
I think what's disappointing too is for most offenses, but specifically Riley's offenses, you have to be able to run the ball to throw.
Mm-hmm.
And we were able to run today, and it still didn't open up passing lanes.
Yeah.
So like Tulane, we didn't run very well. It was like 3.5 yards per carry.
Mm-hmm.
So I can understand passing lanes being clogged, not having people open because they're not afraid of your run game.
Mm-hmm.
But the first half today, we were at like 6.5, almost 7 yards per carry in the first half.
Mm-hmm.
And there still should be more players open than that.
I agree.
If they're gunning to stop the run, it just makes no sense to not have more players open or easier passes.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I want to spend like a second on. It's just like Rattler it's such a weird, like Lucas said, like a regression. It's just so odd to see someone go from what he ended on last year to where he's at now, and
it's Trevor Knightish.
It truly is.
That's a really good point.
Except Trevor didn't look good for the second half of that season.
Right.
He was okay.
Right. It was
Right.
And then looked
one
amazing
game.
in there.
Right.
One
And
game.
he was the guy all of a sudden.
And we did see. We saw a half season out of Spencer Rattler.
Yeah.
It was fantastic.
And that's what's even worse. It's even worse than the Trevor Knight thing because we know Spencer Rattler can be a dude.
Yeah.
And I just think it's a guy who doesn't have an identity right now. I don't know if he knows like.
Do you think it's the NIL branding stuff?
So
He's got
and
his
I
own logo.
don't like using that as a
Now he's got
bailout.
2 free
but
cars from.
You do see stuff like that, and you hear like I've heard the kid. He's a well-spoken guy, and he speaks well to the camera and to the media, and
he doesn't come across as arrogant.
Right. He doesn't come across as a guy
conceited.
who's flaunting anything.
No.
So, but it's also someone who today looking at him and watching him and his decisions or his lack of decisions in a lot of cases. Just a guy that doesn't look like he has a lot of confidence in what he's doing or in either that or in his players that he's trying to get the ball to. I don't know. He just looks a lot lost out there, especially today.
He wasn't sacked today either. I'm looking at the stats. Now, we don't have hurries or pressures or anything, but he had 0 sacks.
He's super quick to roll out of the pocket. Super
Yeah,
quick to roll
he
out of the
definitely
pocket.
leaves way too early.
Yeah.
He did that early on last year, but you wouldn't
settled
think
in.
that would be around again.
Right.
And it is a different offensive line, but they've actually pass protected pretty well this season.
Link back to another highly, highly successful OU quarterback who nobody holds in that top echelon of OU quarterback, Landry Jones. One of his biggest problems.
I hold him in an echelon, but nobody else does.
You shouldn't. One of those problems with Landry Jones is I think he's great. I think he was. I loved what he did for OU and his play. He's just not in the top tier, in my opinion. And the reason he's not is for things like the fact that when it came to pocket play, he would always roll backwards instead of stepping into the pocket or stay in the pocket. I don't want to see Rattler fall into that same problem where he's not confident in the pocket and can find the guy and be willing to take that hit, knowing that and that's, go back to your, Lucas, what your thoughts on, would he be an NFL quarterback? NFL quarterbacks make the pass and take the hit.
Laid out.
They get laid out, they get popped a lot, and they just know that, and that's a tough thing to do. That's one of the things that separates the greats from the so-sos is that you can know that you can make that pass, and you see in your peripheral vision that you're about to be smashed by a 280-pound man.
Yeah.
He's got to get to that
Rattler
point.
did that on that touchdown pass against Florida to Mims in the bowl game. Someone came untouched, had a guy right in his face, and he dropped a dime to Mims in the corner.
Yeah.
So
Martinez was doing it today.
Martinez.
He had one where he was getting nailed from behind and still completed the
hats
great
off
pass.
to Nebraska in so many ways, and in terms of their misdirection plays, their execution, and Martinez, the best quarterback on the field today.
Yeah.
I don't think he's. I mean, if we're in the schoolyard and we're picking teams, I'm picking Rattler every time before I'm picking Martinez, but it's really challenged by what you saw today in terms of their play. That was very impressive by Martinez.
Nebraska fans really showed up today too.
They showed up tremendously.
They were at one point when they
Wow.
when they cut it to seven.
They were loud.
They were go big red, and it was loud.
It was all over that
Now,
stadium.
screw
loud.
you to all those OU fans that sold your tickets to
Yes,
Nebraska fans.
exactly.
I can't stand you guys. I don't care how much money you got paid for those seats. You should have been at the game. There should have only been about 4,000 Nebraska fans.
I don't
There,
know how
so-
you can exactly
say
figure
screw
out
you
you're
to
not
OU
gonna-
fans.
how do you know who you're selling to? How exactly can you discriminate in the way you want to discriminate?
It's OU Nebraska. You don't sell your tickets.
Oh, okay. For even $400?
Yes.
Well, I'm not going to criticize anybody for selling something, especially after how bad the conditions were yet again in that stadium, and I'm not going to get off on that. But running out of water in the
they
upper
were
deck.
Insanely hot.
They were bad.
very bad. Nebraska fans were great. They were fantastic. I guess let's round out the quarterback play. See what everybody else has to say. I'll say that I am still on the Spencer Rattler support train, but I'm having second thoughts, and I realize that he may not be the best option, or he may be the best option, and we don't have a lot of good options.
He's got 2 weeks to figure it out before Texas.
I like that.
So
I like that.
And I don't want him to figure it out at Texas. I want him
Again?
to figure I want him to figure it out next week against what seems to be an okay West Virginia team.
They beat Virginia Tech today, didn't
Yeah.
they?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then
For what it's worth.
Yeah,
Who knows?
Yeah,
I mean, it was a ranked team,
whatever
at
that
least.
is. But going on the road to K-State, figure it out, and that'll be a great test, I think, because that place is going to be rocking when we go up to Manhattan.
I'm still on Spencer's side. I do think he has a shorter leash, though. I think the dynamics, none of us know if Caleb Williams can handle taking on the starting role right now. But here's a theory I have. It's not off topic, but it's a little off base maybe. I think Lincoln started recruiting Rattler when he was like in the 9th grade. Mm-hmm. And Lincoln had kind of just taken over for OU. I think coaching Baker at his tail end and then having Jalen Hurts and Kyler Murray, I think Lincoln has understood how lethal his offense is with a mobile quarterback. And you can see that in the future recruits with Caleb Williams now
Malachi Nelson.
and Malachi Nelson.
Yep.
But I think I don't want to say he's stuck with a 5-star quarterback in Spencer Rattler, but I do think that Lincoln has spent the last 3-4 seasons
Learning who he is.
tailoring his offense to a quarterback who can either really extend the play like Baker could. He was more athletic than Spencer, but not really a runner.
No.
But he extended a lot of plays and gave receivers time to come open. And everybody knows what Hurts and Kyler could do. So I actually think Lincoln is kind of trying to tailor his playbook to a quarterback who's not as athletic, and I think he struggled.
That's a great point, and there's a couple points in there or concerns. One is when you're looking at someone who's recruited since 9th grade, at what point is it all the biases, a sunk cost fallacy, endowment effect fallacy, where he is not willing to let go of the fact that he may have made a mistake all those years ago. Recruiting anyone in the 9th grade is a crapshoot because they have a lot of development to go. He also played at a very small school, so it's hard to say exactly what, and I think we have seen that time and again where he's tried to athletically run and he's realized he can't push people around in Division I football the way he could in his whatever A version,
Although he did
3,
knock
4,
over the
it was.
Nebraska
He
defender
did knock
and
him
stood
over
over
today.
him. I was hoping
I
he
was
gonna get
afraid he
flagged.
was going to get flagged.
I don't-
Exactly.
I don't
more of
think
a
it's-
glance than a
No, he knocked the guy down,
and then
stood
he
over
stood
him,
over.
and I
it.
thought he was
he
gonna
stood.
get flagged.
He stood up to him.
Right.
The guy got back up.
I don't
But
think
anyway,
it's so much that he's incorrect in Spencer's talents. I just don't know if he's
type of quarterback.
able to use
beat him
his talents
in his. No,
the
that's
way
my
he wants
second.
to.
That was the second thing I think that was great. A good point that you directly made is that he may be mismatched for Riley, and Riley did not recruit Baker. Did he at Texas Tech? No, he wasn't there at the time.
No, he was
at
at
ECU.
Carolina. Yes.
So he didn't recruit Kyler. He didn't recruit all these guys exactly. He got in. It was a different combination.
Sooner Magic
of
brought him
things
to
coming
campus.
together. Sooner Magic brought him together. And for whatever reason, it was absolutely magical. And it could still be magical with Rattler. Rattler's got a lot of talent. He could be magical. He is a tremendous athlete, a tremendous quarterback mind, I think. It just needs to be channeled and probably find some maturity. Anything else about Rattler? This has become the Rattler show for a while, huh?
No, I'm not going
That's
to
a
give
good
up on
theme.
him,
That's a good
but
theme.
I'm agreeing with Connor. Like, he needs to get it figured out in the next 2 weeks. I don't want to have the
that's the
same feeling I did after Tulane and after today going into the Texas game. That would, my nerves are already shot with a 5-point Tulane game, a 7-point Nebraska game. I don't want to go into the Texas game feeling like I feel today.
Yeah, that's what sucks is that game. Like this game, Tulane, that's tiring.
It is
That's-
tiring.
Like and
This, even with
And
the
in the
heat.
heat.
Just-
I mean,
yeah.
with the heat especially,
hot,
but even besides
and you're
the heat.
watching it and you're like, God, why
Yes,
am I doing
I shouldn't be
this?
stressed.
I should not be
shouldn't be
stressed
stressed.
in the last 4 minutes of
Exactly.
the fourth quarter against
Physically
these teams.
painful.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That was frustrating. Do you think there's any? I don't think there's anything to this, but do you think there's anything to the fact that it is Nebraska? Maybe there is. Nebraska, it meant a lot to Nebraska fans.
I bet
this
Scott
game.
Frost had that team. Just
Scott Frost
absolutely.
Scott Frost had two reasons
jacked.
to. One, he is on thin
Hot
ice.
seat.
The hottest
He's
of
in the
hot
hot
seats.
seat, and at the same time, he's got all of this nostalgia building on him.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas for OU, it's kind of just another game. These players don't have any knowledge or history of this rivalry. Lincoln doesn't. I mean, they know about it, but they didn't experience it and live it. They don't know about Sooner Magic. I lived it. I've seen it. I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly with the OU Nebraska series. I lived through the 90s, and damn sure I wanted revenge today. I
Yeah.
wanted to roll them up 49-0
Yeah, me too.
and be calling off the dogs and everything. But we didn't do that for sure. So I don't know. Maybe there's something to that, that it was a little bit of a weird matchup, that we had a lot to lose and not a lot to gain, and they were the opposite of that. I don't know.
I mean, it's the same philosophy you could use about the Tulane game, saying, "Oh, they moved the game the week of, all this poo-poo crap."
No, I wouldn't
Poor
use that
OU.
excuse. I wouldn't use that excuse at all. And I don't like that excuse here. But I do wonder if it wasn't a bad mismatch. I mean, anytime you play Nebraska, Nebraska's a good opponent, because Nebraska's a big name still. At least for now. We'll see where they develop. Notre Dame's a big name, and they're not. This year they're not very good at all. I don't think.
Nebraska at this point to me is like UCLA.
Exactly.
we're
An
gonna
ideal
UCLA is
matchup.
not a great
Ideal
team,
matchup.
but it's
if it means a lot to
name.
UCLA, like it meant to Nebraska, it can be a trap game to a degree. So there may have been some trap element to it. I don't know. We'll see.
We're gonna get every lower level team's best shot, no matter what.
Well, for sure, with
So,
our
I mean,
move to the SEC and everything.
But it's been like that for 20
I know,
years.
but I don't think you can. I don't think we can ever go into a game and say, this team's just gonna. I absolutely think it does play a role. Like, yeah, we should have stomped them regardless, 100%. But you add not only the fact that they're playing an amazing Oklahoma team and this big name right now, and Nebraska's very much down. Then add on top of it all of the stuff that goes with this game and the history of it. There's no doubt in my mind that there was a level of get up for that team to come out and be impressive, and they were impressive in my opinion. I don't think they were anything that we shouldn't have just murdered.
When me and Steve were watching the pregame, they showed Nebraska getting off the bus,
Mm-hmm.
and Scott Frost had the cockiest look.
Not bad cocky, like confident,
like,
ready
to go.
Yeah.
Like, I'm-
he stepped off the bus and he had this little smirk on his face. And I told Steve, I said, we may need to watch out because Frost looks like he's ready. Like they're gonna go. Like,
Yeah,
it's on.
he's ready to fight.
And they were.
Well, that's why I texted you guys earlier in the week. I just didn't feel like a 3-touchdown victory was going to come easy. It was a season-saving potential win for them.
And you
Maybe
luckily
head
bet
coaching-
$100,000
That's right.
on that, and you did real well.
Frost could be coaching for his job almost. I mean, it could be a
Absolutely.
job-saving type of win today,
Absolutely.
regardless
Oh, it
of what
would've
the rest of the
been.
season
Yeah.
was. If he'd come
Maybe
into
even
Norman and
lose
won
the-
it today,
yeah.
Maybe lose the rest of
it'd
his
have been
game.
just
He'd
fine.
still keep
No.
his job.
Yeah.
So
It would have helped him a lot. I think it's a moral victory for Nebraska. I think it's a big. It was at least neutral
I
for
wish we had
Scott
a
Frost.
Nebraska fan here. It'd be fun to.
It would be real
I talked to a
fun.
couple after the game, and I said, we're all treated well, and they said, oh yeah, we had
That's
a
good.
good time. I said, you have a good time? They go, yeah. Even though we lost, it was a great game, and we're not as disappointed as we thought we'd be.
yeah, I didn't hear a single fan that thought they had a chance coming to town.
Yeah.
Actually, I think the fans came just for the nostalgia and to be
Right.
here. I don't think they really thought
And a win
fourth
would've been a
quarter,
massive bonus,
one
yeah.
one possession game whatsoever.
Like they had the ball with the ability to go win the game.
They sure did. So, any contentious views? What takes do you have that might be controversial at this point, aside from the fact that you want us to go to who's the third string quarterback?
I don't think we
I
have
always
a
forget.
13.
No, we do. It's number 19.
I would say that
Ralph Rucker?
We
Ralph
are.
Rucker, yeah.
I'd take Chad Morris.
What kind of takeaway should we have for the fact that Lincoln is so quick to kick the long field goal? He seems, is that his lack of confidence in our offense? Is
I
that
think
his
it's the confidence in Burkins.
kicker? Yeah, I don't
Which
know.
he didn't miss it. He missed it by
missed
like
it.
2 feet.
Yeah, I
It
know.
was close.
He's very, very good. He's
That
very
was a
good.
54-yarder. I mean,
Is that
I
affecting
think
his
it's his
play call?
offensive upbringing. I think he would be well suited, especially since we got a transfer punter in that was either All Pac-12 or All American. I don't remember. He's one of the two. And
I think he's All-American.
when you're not used to having a good defense, you go for field goals. You go for more fourth
I
downs.
think you go for more fourth downs for sure.
I go the other way. I think you punt the ball. I think you pin them deeper. You make them go 85, 90 yards.
You would have punted.
instead of missing a field
You would
goal
have
from
punted
the
on
40.
that. You would have punted on that field goal. 51.
I don't recall
the down
the down and distance, the
What was-
time. I don't remember the time.
Pull that up. Pull the missed field goal up. It was about the if it's a 51-yard field goal, then it was at the 41-yard line.
It was at the 44. It was a 54. It was a 54
54-yard field goal.
54-yard field goal.
54-yard miss.
Of course, I'm going to criticize the fact that he didn't go for it on his call on 3rd and 6.
Right.
Made him.
Yeah,
be
you
in
gotta
that
be
position.
better.
I didn't like any of that.
You have to be better there.
I
Even
didn't
if
like
you want,
any of
even
that.
if you were gonna kick a field goal,
Yeah.
you want to kick a 49-yard field goal,
Right.
not a
You mean-
54-yard.
4th
Right.
and 6 at the Nebraska 37. That's a go for it zone to me.
I agree.
The
At the
Nebraska
37?
37.
Okay, yeah.
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
That's go for it to me. 4th and 6. There was a third and 6 before that. He threw an incompletion to Stogner. Said he was hurried when he threw it.
That was a bad decision. It was a bad
real
coaching
bad.
decision.
Actually, we had
and
a
it was
second.
bad option
We
route
had a
by
second
Stogner.
and 4, and then it says Eric Gray lost 2 yards. So
Right.
we get 3rd and 6. Then we had an incompletion.
Yeah, that
So,
incompletion was where
I mean,
my criticism
losing 2
comes in.
yards on 2nd and 4. I mean,
Yeah.
2nd and 4 from the Nebraska, 35. That you should be. I mean, that's go zone for throwing in the
I
end
agree.
zone.
There's just no.
Second
There,
and
that's
4.
the thing. There's just no offensive, at least on a consistent basis. The rhythm is so off. It's
The
so
rhythm
not
is
like.
not there. A
Even
friend
when
of
I
mine
feel like we're
texted the
flowing,
same thing. He
we're
said there's
not-
no
we're-
rhythm.
It's just not at all.
And he's running 6 plays total, and you got both directions. So we're running 12 different plays throughout the game. Is what it felt like today.
Yeah.
And
Now
how,
you guys.
how could Mims be open literally all last season, wide open for deep balls, and he's just nowhere to be found?
They're not running those routes. He's
They're
not
not running
trying.
those routes. They're not trying.
The
They're
one
not
that he
trying
threw over the middle on the post that was the Mario Williams, the other knockdown that he had. Williams came from his right, cut across diagonally to his left, and he was open. The defender was trailing him, and when Spencer threw that ball, he threw it more down the middle, and Williams had to adjust to make his route more vertical as opposed to continuing the diagonal.
Yeah, he didn't
lane
lead him.
that
He
was
didn't
on.
lead him out towards the
No,
pylon.
if he led him, he catches that, and maybe the defender tackles him at the 10 or 15 or whatever. But if not, he walks in the end zone. But he had to literally cut off and go back vertical to try to get underneath the ball, and that's when the defender jumped and he had to knock it down.
You guys follow this more than I do, but tell me about the rotation on both offense, defense, offensive line, defensive line in particular, and maybe the DBs as well. Criticism, how has it changed since the first 2 games? What do you think about
I
that?
don't know. I think offensively, I still see a lot of rotation. I know Riley has a very probably complex playbook. But you guys made a good point. We're not running a lot of different plays. It doesn't look like, but we're still rotating guys out like every play. It feels like, and we're not letting guys take advantage of finding themselves, or Spencer finding a guy that he can really like. Hey, Hazelwood's hot today. Like he's getting open. I'm gonna look at that. So I don't know. I don't want to like kind of gimmick up a reason to keep on piling on the criticisms, but what is different like right now? I don't think we've ever seen a 3-game stretch like this or at least 2 out of a 3-game stretch where it's been so stagnant from on that side of the ball at least.
I think rotating the receivers out so often still bugs me. He did it again today.
It drives me crazy.
Like if you have 3 guys in there that all know what they're doing and where they're supposed to be,
Or they're they're better.
Don't pull 2 of them
Yeah, they're
out
just
on
better.
2nd
They're
down
better
and put
wide
2 new
receivers.
guys in,
Right.
Because then you're changing the dynamic of the whole team by doing that, and then you're also giving the defense a chance to substitute. When we are at our best and we're in rhythm, we're running down the field and not necessarily just snapping it fast, but if you go out there and you get, say, 1st and 10, you run for 6 yards.
You create a mismatch. They've got the wrong defensive players on the field.
Yes,
you just leave your guys
leave
out.
those receivers on the field instead of swapping one out, because then the ref's going to hold the ball. It's going to give the other team a chance to rotate 2 or 3 guys out, in and out, and then you're snapping the ball, at the 8-second mark because the refs held the ball to allow the substitution. Whereas if you get up there, even if you just line up and check the sideline to see what the next play is, Nebraska's not going to be running dudes in and out of there because they don't know when you're going to snap that ball.
Right.
But instead, we're swapping out 2 receivers for absolutely no reason.
Yep.
And now I understand you got to change the package, like you bring in an extra H-back and swap out
that's
receivers.
different.
That's totally
That's
different.
different,
But
yeah.
literally swapping 2 receivers on 2nd or 3rd down,
2
as
equivalent
opposed
people.
to just keeping with the guys you got on the field to stop the other team from being able to swap fresh defensive linemen in.
Right.
Like,
Which
that could cost you 3 or 4 first downs a game.
Absolutely, because we have the talent advantage. We don't need the fresh people.
Yeah.
They need fresh people. So if you give them a chance to, 1, catch their breath, 2, get fresh people in there, 3, let their coaches catch their minds, their mental breath, if you will. They're not keeping up with Lincoln Riley and his staff otherwise.
Yeah.
Keep applying pressure. Can you imagine being a defensive coordinator trying to go up against Lincoln Riley?
But see, he's almost stopped the up tempo.
Oh,
I don't know if that is if he realized it helps his defense by not going like an instantaneous 3 and out sometimes.
It may have helped his defense when the defense was weak, but I don't think the defense needs to help anymore.
Exactly.
And like I said, I'm not trying to run Kevin Wilson 2008 like super up tempo, snap the ball every 15 seconds.
But maybe
I'm talking get up to the line, and it's still going to not let Nebraska substitute on a lot of those 3rd and 4s when you could just leave the 3 receivers you've got on the field as opposed to swapping 1 or 2 of them out.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of times you used to do that too because you created some sort of a mismatch. You caught them with too many linebackers on the field or too many secondary, not enough linebackers, so you just start pounding the rock and they don't have the bodies to take care of it. But now it seems like it's not so much about that. You're replacing Stogner and you're putting in
Willis.
Somebody else. It's like what's the advantage? It doesn't change the schematics.
Unless he's coming in with unless he's shuffling the play in. I don't know what the plan is.
And I don't ever remember Riley doing it like this. It seems like it's this season that he started the receiver swapping, and then maybe it's trying to get guys to not transfer because they're not seeing enough playing time. But
I wonder.
Hazelwood shouldn't be running off the field. Mims shouldn't be running off the field.
I agree.
And if you want to swap out, Mario Williams and Mims every now and then, but not.
There's 2 ways to accomplish the worry about the transfer.
Back and forth.
One would be get up to 45 points, and then everyone gets to play, and you keep throwing the ball. Or find the best guys, and you don't care about the guys who transfer because that is okay.
You're always going to have the best guy out there.
Well, let's look at our picks real quick. We weren't very different on score. Lucas won with 41. The other 3 we had 45. Obviously scored 23. Connor won with the low yardage, so it's lows all around. 408 was the actual yardage. Connor guessed 499. Lucas and Che right together at 538 and 540, and I was right between everybody at 525. The low time one, which is really weird because we got the ball first at 8:02. We
that
scored.
looked like a Jalen Hurts drive.
It really did. That's a great point. And Jay won that one just by a hair, beating. Really, if it would have gone one more, he would have been tying Elise for the score there. None of us won the player being Rattler. Longest play, none of us got it at 100 yards. It was dramatic and probably game-changing PAT that was blocked and run all the way back for a 2-point conversion. And there's going to be a carryover. None of us got the last OU player to score. Poll predictions. Where will OU be ranked after this week?
We'll stay at 3.
I agree.
Who's Oregon play today?
Who cares?
Stony Brook.
Stony Brook?
We're 3.
So they can put up 70.
I said 3.
I can see, Oregon's behind us, right? They're 4.
They're 4.
I can see if Oregon does what we did last week, like a 76-0 type of game, they could move.
You think they would move?
If Tulane wins tonight
against Nebraska?
helps us a lot.
No way.
That's true.
Against a 2-2 Nebraska team?
No way. No, people are going to see Nebraska.
I don't think
OU
so.
Nebraska.
I think people are going to remember, they lost to Illinois, and then Illinois got
When I
trounced
poll the
next week.
people, I guarantee you that's not what they think. What do you think, Jay?
Yeah, I think it's about the same.
I think we dropped to 4.
I don't think there's.
You're predicting 4.
I'm predicting we drop to 4. Unless Oregon wins
What?
42 to 20.
So you tell. So what if Clemson wins this game 7-3 that they're currently winning right now against Georgia Tech? Would you still would you
Yeah,
use
they
that?
got-
as an
they
Can we
got
be?
lost their
Can we be
confidence.
2? Can we be 1? You don't think we're good enough?
Not going to be one.
This is such a weird year. Alabama squeaks by.
Squeaks by Florida.
Honestly,
Is that a failed 2-point conversion to a tie?
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
not even.
31-29.
It was an embarrassing fail of
Yeah.
a 2-point
Weird.
conversion.
Yeah.
This is such a. I don't know.
It was a Dan Mullen special.
The tide is leveling out. Maybe.
The Crimson Tide is leveling out.
No,
I'm
the tide-
on it.
college
Not
football
only,
tide. College
not
football
only
tide.
is the see, I wouldn't go so far as to say that. I would say that it's a year of a little bit of a turnover and surprise. By the end of the year, we will look at the top 4 or 8 teams and we'll say, wow, those are really the class of football. It just might be surprising the names attached to those teams.
Yeah.
Obviously, the number 1 will be OU, but we'll get to that in a second. Next game predictions. We play West Virginia at night. So we are doing this thing where we go 11 a.m., 6 something, 11 a.m., 6 something, bad game, good game, bad game. This is going to be a blowout. We're going to do really good. 6:30 kickoff against West Virginia. What do you think is going to happen, Lucas?
I think we can beat West Virginia.
Okay. We can beat West Virginia. Go out on a limb on what we can do.
What's that line going to be? You think 17-ish?
That's a really good line.
I don't think so.
Think it'd be lower?
Yeah.
Think it'd be 10? I don't
Yeah, I'll
think it'd be single digits.
I'll go 13 or so. Yeah.
I'll go with 17. I like 17.
I think it's going to be somewhere between 13 and 17 probably.
13 and a half is a good spot.
Are we gonna have a good showing? What are we gonna do?
We're playing an undefeated West
Well,
Virginia.
I mean, it's a night game, so that does benefit.
Not undefeated by much.
That does benefit us.
Barely.
I think that there are some factors working in our favor. One factor working against us is the fact that we are somewhat listing, if you will, to use a ship illusion. And I think that it depends on how we react to all of that, how we react in this off week. If we start taking ourselves even more seriously or continue the serious thought, then we might get things going and have a great showing.
I think
Otherwise, we might get caught.
the drop to number 4 in the polls would help us because it would be like, hey, you guys beat Nebraska, and the people don't believe in you.
I was
could be.
So you
hoping
need
we
to come out
fell to
and blow
7 or
West
8
Virginia
after
out.
Tulane.
Yeah,
That was my
he
hope.
did. He did.
No, I laugh.
I do. I really do.
laugh
I really
only
hope.
because, although that's probably accurate for the way that those polls should be volatile,
Yeah.
humans don't do that. They,
I just
as you
wish they
know,
had.
because just like the Alabama game today, there's no way anyone's ever going to not have Alabama at number 1 right now. And
No,
they
you could
barely
almost
beat
move.
Florida.
You could almost move
And
Florida
you
up.
almost could move
After a
Florida
loss.
up after that loss,
Right, but
and
they
you
won't.
could and you could move Alabama down. You could make the case.
But for
So-
motivating factor, if we drop
Yeah.
to 4, then they're in the locker room saying, "Man, nobody believes in
Yeah.
us. We beat Nebraska. We did our job."
If you do that right. Unfortunately, I think they spend so much time saying ignore the media, don't listen to it, don't read your newspaper clippings, and they're
doesn't
like, what the hell's a
work. High
newspaper?
school or college kids.
They tell them don't do the media, and they tell them, I don't think they hammer away the way you can, because if you spend the whole time saying ignore polls, and then you drop in the polls, say they're not respecting you, you say, but coach, you said we shouldn't look at that.
Yeah.
Only when I say it's important.
I'm not saying the coaches are going to say that. I'm just saying the other players would be like,
That could be.
they're going to say themselves.
When they listen to our podcast, they'll know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
They'll know.
So let's close, unless someone has something else to say, which maybe this, I say let's close, and this might be 45 minutes. Optimistic or pessimistic going forward? Will OU be a playoff team? Will they win the Big 12? Jay, we'll give you the courtesy of
Well, that's a
starting.
tough one.
No, it's not. 2 simple questions.
Man, I do think that we will win the Big 12 because things are correctable and we are more talented than everybody else.
Yeah.
And it should come together.
Correctable, and yet we're still playing very well.
And
and the league is down.
yeah, I don't think the league's that great. Fortunately or unfortunately, our offensive line is on the beat and bow track where we're 2-3 games away from having a really good offensive line that propels us through the end of the season
The Joe Moore line we expect.
until we
Game
run
9 were
into
incredible.
until we run into an SEC playoff squad or a Clemson team, and all of a sudden our offensive line just isn't so good anymore. So I think we
But
have
that's not
that
always
trajectory.
true. That's not always true. Against Georgia, they were still really good. And I don't know. Somebody do the math. How many of those 5 guys are starting in the NFL right now? Oh, that's right, all 5.
Yeah, at least 4.
Yeah. So you say we will win
I
the
do
Big
think
12.
we'll win the Big 12.
Are we a playoff team? and look at it from a broader spectrum, not just a prediction, will we be, but somewhat of a prediction and somewhat of a should we be? Should we be thinking of ourselves as a playoff team?
I don't think we're playing good enough. No, not right now. There's a long way to go. Will we end up that way? Probably so. I think Alabama is going to be there for sure. Clemson's not looking great, but they actually have a really, really weak rest of their schedule. I mean, they should just. Everyone's going to forget the Georgia game, and by that time they're going to be 11-1 or 12-1, and still be in. I don't think Oregon has a whole lot of tough games left. And Ohio State's going to lose again. I think the Big Ten's going to eat each other up a little bit.
What was the final
Penn
in
State,
Ohio State Tulsa?
27-14, I think.
So I do. I think that we will be
A playoff contender?
I think we will be in the
41 to
playoffs,
20,
even
Ohio
though
State.
we are not playing well enough to be in the playoffs.
Wow. So we're going to get better.
Yes.
You're optimistic.
Yes, but I also think we can definitely lose every game we play from here on out.
We cannot. So by that you mean every game we play.
Let's just say at 10 o'clock next Saturday.
There's only
if we have lost
one
West Virginia,
game.
I'll be like, oh yeah.
There's only one game on our schedule. That's true, but that's true of everyone, and that's true of even Alabama.
No, I don't feel that way.
It's not
Normally.
true, actually. We can't lose to Kansas. That would
Impossible.
be, a 9 standard deviation event. But by and large, every team can get beat in football. I think I hear what you're saying, that we're not a team where we're going to be a 60-40 in a lot of games rather than a 70-30 or 80-20.
I think we're going to have a lot of fourth quarter games.
Yeah.
Where we're still playing all of our starters.
We
and
want
stuff.
our percentages to be higher than they're going to be, and they're just not going to be.
We're not
That's
going to
fair.
run away with games.
Connor, what do you think?
I'm
Playoff team?
I'm
Big 12?
optimistic. Yes, and yes. Definitely playoff team. Definitely going to take the Big 12. We've been through this this riding of the ship over the first few weeks. It feels weird this year because we're riding some positions that we haven't had to write before, and some positions that we have had to write before are looking our strongest. So. I think we're just uncomfortable as fans. Like we've been in.
We wanted more. We're greedy.
Yeah, for sure. And I think with a program like OU, you should be greedy as a fan, and it should be understood by both players and coaches that that's the standard. So I'm optimistic. I think that, like Jay said, everything is correctable at this point. I think you need to find some confidence with your quarterback. You need to find a way to establish some consistent and rhythmic offense. But once you do that, and it will be done, I think you're in a great position to be exactly where I think we'll be at the end of the year.
So we're watching the entrance of Penn State, and who are they playing today? Auburn. That's a big game.
That is a game.
Whiteout.
Awesome.
That's the type of game I hope to see. That's a bucket list
Well,
environment.
that
for me.
it'd be fun. It'd be really great to see OU do a home and home against Penn State. But if you look at that, and that is the kind of game and atmosphere I would like to have seen Nebraska in today. It wasn't exactly that. Part of it's the fact that it's a morning game instead of an evening game. But it just, I don't know, it's interesting to see the contrast there as a little digression. I'll say that I'm optimistic. I'm less optimistic than I've been at any point in the season. But I do think that we are most likely to win the Big 12 versus any opponent. We may or may not be greater than 50% to win the Big 12 just because of the difficulty of that. That's a change.
Yep.
So I'm a little less optimistic to almost pessimistic about it, but I think that we're more likely than any other team to win the Big 12. We're in the best position. It's ours to lose, if you will. Playoff team, I think that we're going to be a playoff team. I think that we'll be a contender to be a playoff team, and I think we'll likely be a playoff team. But it won't surprise me as much now as it would have in the past few weeks if we don't end up being a playoff team. But I'll say this, and you mentioned it when you said that people will forget the Georgia game for Clemson. There's going to be a lot of games that are forgotten. No one's going to look back at this Nebraska win and talk much about it. When you look back at Ohio State barely beating Indiana last year, and that's a weird year. So let's look at Alabama barely beating Mississippi last year. Let's look at Clemson in the years they've won the national title and the things that they've done, nearly losing or losing to teams in their conference that are jokes, absolute jokes, like our Kansas State loss last year. That happens. It happens a lot in college football, and you can overcome it. I don't think that a victory is something that's too difficult to overcome at all, so I'm not too concerned about that. I am concerned about the fact that we're not looking as good as we would like for us to be looking and as sharp as we're supposed to be looking. All that said, we don't know everything that we think we knew going into any given game. Nebraska can be better than what we thought they were. They don't have to be that bad. And so you can be a little optimistic from that standpoint as well.
I will say this. If you look at the first 3 games last year, we lose 2 of those games that we shouldn't have lost.
Right, for
and
sure.
through 3 games this year, we won 2 of those games that we maybe should have lost.
Or could have lost easily.
Right. So from that aspect, it's actually an improvement. Maybe we're learning how to win, learning how to close games, relying on the defense to close on games.
That's a good point.
But we're still underwhelming overall.
That's a really good point, Lucas. Now, what are you going to say? Are we optimistic or pessimistic over there?
I think we'll win the Big 12 championship.
All right.
I think we will still lose a game in the Big 12. And with how horrible this league is, that one loss will probably keep us out of the playoffs.
So you agree with me that we want teams like Texas to win so that we look good in those games?
No,
that
I
it
never want
improves our
Texas to
quality
win.
of opponent.
I don't care.
So that we, so
Nope.
you don't, you're saying we're going to lose a game and the league is weak, so we need to look as good as we can. We need help.
Nope.
Uh-huh.
The only time I ever want Texas to win is if it puts us in the position to make it into the Big 12 title game for some reason if we're behind them, and that's about the only reason. Or if I
if
need
we
Texas
could get
to
us
beat a
into-
team, if Texas needs to beat a team to get us
To get us
in
in
the
the
Big
playoff
12,
or
yeah.
something. Yeah, that's what you mean. So you're
I'm a realist.
a realist. Yeah, you got your opinion. We've
Big
got
12
our opinion.
Big 12
We've
championship
all got opinions.
with one loss and
Not a
probably
playoff
finishing
team.
5th or 6th in the playoff voting. Or-
Okay.
I think there's extreme parity this year in football.
Okay.
And some of it might be due to a lot of teams bringing back players they would have normally brought back because you get the extra year. I think some teams have kind of super seniors on their squads that are maybe keeping them in games that they shouldn't be keeping themselves in. While teams like OU, Ohio State, we lose players before we should lose players.
Right.
So it's almost like a
draft.
double whammy in terms of
That's a very
of
interesting
players
theory.
coming back
I like
for
that.
teams. But I don't think any league, barring maybe the SEC or something, I don't think any league is very good.
No,
I
I agree.
ACC is not very good. The
I agree.
Pac-12 is not very good.
I
Big
agree.
12 is
Oh.
not very good.
Yeah,
So
I
really,
think the
the winner of
Pac-12 might
those
be
three
better than
leagues-
what they typically been. The ACC is a joke.
Yeah.
But
And,
Clemson's
and
already
the
played their-
SEC,
Clemson's only deal is they
the
didn't lose in
SEC is much
conference,
so
worse
the-
than they usually.
Clemson lost their one tough game of the year, so if they run the ACC table and win the championship, they've got their one loss to Georgia, so they're probably ahead of us in the playoff.
If we
we
lose.
lost to a
But that could
Iowa
hurt
State
them
or
too.
Kansas State.
That could also
hurt
go
them.
the other way.
Yeah, it could.
I mean, you played nobody all season.
And the
in
one
your
time you
league,
played somebody,
and
you got
did,
beat.
You couldn't even get a touchdown.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if their loss would be quote
Well,
unquote better than our loss.
I don't know. We'll cycle through a lot of what ifs when we get to actual play and see where people end up. But I don't know. I like your theory. I like that idea that the super seniors and all the people coming back is an aid to teams that we don't get that aid. And you're right. The top programs just naturally lose a lot more players. We're not subject to bring people back. We don't lose
We
people to
should still
graduation.
have-
we lose them to
We
the
should
NFL.
still have Adrian Ely at right tackle right now. Robinson should be still at guard. Chris Murray would be fighting for center, and Ely would be at right tackle for offensive line, as an example. I mean, he left too early, went undrafted. There's no reason to leave.
Right.
It's a really good, interesting.
And it's not just
theory.
the lower
And
teams.
we get to have Ronnie
like,
Perkins on our defensive line too.
Right.
it's not just the
I don't
like
want to talk about that.
Louisiana Techs of the world that are having the super seniors. I think these mid-level major conference teams are having more players return that would have graduated normally coming back.
Okay. All right.
Well, that was
Conference play.
conference
next
play
week.
begins next week, and we'll be back covering all the action.
Boomer Sooner.
Appreciate it, everybody.
Over center.